So this is yarn weaving. This is somebody's that left theirs last semester. So to get this going, there's a little bit of work about putting the strings on and then picking your colors. But essentially, this part of it is, the reason you have 2 color strings is because it helps you figure out which way you're going. But you go under, so like this one's under the light blue strings. And so I'm picking up, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of tilting the shuttle back and forth. And once I make sure that I have all the right color strings on the top, you should be able to see down there, kind of like all the other color strings are on the bottom. Then I'm going to pull this through. The trick to making this so that your weaving doesn't go in like that later is to hold this piece up here. I'm just going to hold this out. And I'm going to push this in like that. And then you can kind of scoot it up. And then once I've done the light blue, then on this way, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go under the dark blue. And this is just a back and forth thing. The cool things with weavings are you can weave all sorts of things. You can weave some sticks into here. You could weave nails. You could weave other kinds of fibers. You could weave strips of t-shirt. You could weave all sorts of things. You could weave patterns if you did like the over under pattern. Is the kind of basic one, but if you did like over 2 under 1, over 2 under 1, it would give you a different kind of look. Okay, so this is the basic weaving basic pattern. So there's a couple things people need to know is when you are starting and stopping colors, like, oh, I've run out, what am I going to do? You go to the middle, or if you want to switch colors. So I'm going to use my fingers to do this, and I'm going to go in about, oh, maybe a quarter, third of the way, and I'm going to put the string through, and I'm going to pull it out the top so it's coming out, and I'm going to just push it up, and I'm going to hook it up through the top up here, and I'm going to just leave it out of the way for now, because that will help me start the next color. So let me grab another color, maybe. So here's my next color, and that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the same way, except I'm just going to, instead of going all the way from the end, I'm going to just go in from the few. And so the whole point is to start and stop in the middle of your weaving. And the reason you do that is because it allows your tails to be caught, and then you don't have any strings on the edge. Because if you end your things on the edge, your weaving will fray. So you always want your strings to come out of the middle of the weaving, because as you go, you're going to, you'll drop your shuttle a lot. As you go, you will trap those ends in and they will stay. And so I'm going to come back this way. And once I do this, it'll lock that change in. And then at the very end, we'll trim these off. And when you trim, you hold these threads up and you trim with your scissors flat to it. You don't ever dig down at the weaving. And the reason is that if you hold your scissors flat against the weaving while you're trimming it, you're not going to cut a hole into it by accident. I'm going to pull this in. The other thing a lot of people do is they just kind of loosely do this. And if you can see these strings, these are called your warp strings. If you can see those strings, you're not pushing your string together tight enough. And so what you do is you just push it up tight, and then you don't see your warp strings. And that's the basics of yarn weaving, all right? So questions on that? That's an option. Option 2. I'm going to pause this for just a minute. So both when you're starting a weaving and a cardboard loom, is what you're going to do is you're going to need to warp your board. And so is what you do is you take one string and you leave a long tail and you put it through the back. And I usually start a few away from the edge. If you're doing actually I just try to do odd numbers of strings. It's just as a thought, but it makes your bead weaving easier. So I'm a few in from there, and I'm gonna skip every other one. Now, these boards are new. The ones that you guys are gonna get are new. So you wanna be careful. These boards can snap, and these little tabs can tear. The trick to doing this is to make sure that these strings go all the way down in the slots. If your strings aren't going all the way down in the slots, eventually your weaving will get really loose in weird areas and it'll be really hard to weave. Now I just kind of snap those a little bit. You just want to be careful with these. They're cheap boards. They're not going to last forever. Please, I'd like to at least for them to last 2 projects instead of just 1. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to do 2 more. 1 more white string. I'm going to end. So when you're doing odd numbers, you're going to end with the same color. And I'm going to just cut this string long, and I'm going to leave it for a second. Wherever I put my scissors. Just kidding. There they are. I'm going to leave that string long. Come on. I'm going to switch colors so I can see what I'm doing. And this is not yarn, this is cotton string. And we use cotton string because it doesn't give a lot, like it doesn't stretch very much once you've got it going. And so I don't know if you can see the different color. There it is. Yeah, you can see a little bit the color difference. And I'm just gonna warp the other side. If you guys want to borrow string or boards or things like that to do warping at home, you're welcome to. If you want to get your boards warped before you leave, we have time, you're welcome to do that. All right, so I also have that string long. This is how you tie the strings. I grab all my strings from the back, these 2 and these 2. I take them, it's like you're tying your shoelaces. You go under once. I'm gonna go under again, so if you go under twice, it holds a little bit better. You can have somebody else put their finger there if you need to, but you're gonna just make another X. So you're gonna make essentially a square knot. And you're gonna leave your tails long. And you leave your tails long in case you screwed something up. So don't trim these. If you want these out of the way, just tuck them under. So if I wanted to do a yarn weaving, I could just start now, but this is bead weaving. So I've got pony beads. Yay, pony beads. The thing with pony beads is I need to count spaces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces. And I need to get some paper. And I have paper somewhere. Ah, there it is. A piece of graph paper is going to be really helpful. I'm going to get a pencil. I'm super not prepared for demonstrations. And so I had 10 spaces. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's as wide as it is. And then I can go long. And I think you can get 30 on. We'll see how long it goes. Odd numbers are a little bit easier to do things with. But it's what you're going to do is you're going to make a design. So if I wanted to do my name, if I wanted like a border or something and then to do a pattern, I could just color the pattern. So the first thing you're going to need to do for beading is to decide what colors you do have and what color you want your pattern. You can make some really cool patterns. You can also do your name. Maybe I don't need mine as long as I thought I did. Okay, so I'm going to say that everything that I colored dark color is going to be, let me see if I can make this so you guys can see it the same way. There we go. And I will do it like this. So you're going to use a really giant needle. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this needle. It's about as long as my hand is. And you're also going to use this string. And you're going to grab this string. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to pull it from one shoulder to my opposite shoulder and cut. That's about as long as you ever want to have any string. If you have a hard time with threading needles, what you don't need to do, because it's going to be problematic, is you don't need to tie your string onto your needle. But is what you can do is you can make a thin little paper piece that's small as a hole, fold it in half. Makes like a little V sandwich. I'm going to put the string inside the V sandwich. And then I'm going to stick the ends of that paper through the hole of the needle and pull the string through. So this little paper threader, super important, don't lose it. When you're pulling thread on needles, if you're pulling your needle and you're holding it down here and your hole, the eye of the needle's down here with the thread, if you pull, it's going to just pull the thread right out. So to keep your thread from coming out, you pinch the needle on the eye anytime you're moving the needle. So anytime you need to move thread, you need to pinch it because it won't come off the needle that way. So for to start the beads, and this is why it's confusing, to start beads, you do it like you're doing a bead, like a yarn weaving, where you go under the colors. And this is, I'm going to put the zoom up on the thing so you guys can see this. If you get stuck and you're like, why isn't it working? You're like, oh, I didn't listen to her. And then I'm going to come back under the blue. And this is the only time on a bead weaving that you're going to go over, under, over, under. And this very first time is what you're doing is you're going to pull these strings gently and you're going to tie a knot. Again, it's make an X and go under. Make another X and go under. I have a little knot. It's going to keep my string on. Now, my pattern says I need 9 that are all one color. So it's going to, you just pick the color that you want. I have a ton of pink in here, so I'm going to pick pink. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what I've done is I've put 9 beads in order. So this is my pattern. Pink 1, that would be the first one on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, I'm short one. Grab one more bead. That's why I like to count while they're on my needle. I'm going to go underneath the strings with all the beads. And I'm going to push them into place. Once they're in, then I take my needle off. Oops, let me try that again. I'm going to push them into place. Make sure there's one bead in between each string. And then I'm going to pull my needle through. Once they're there, and this is important. I don't know if I can show it well. So right now, the main string is underneath, and so I'm going to go on top of the strings. Oh, let me see my camera. So if you see there's a loop right there. When you're done with this, if you did it right, on this end of the strings, you're going to have a small loop right there. Okay? And then on this side of the string, let me find my camera. Where's my camera? Nope, closer. Dang it. There it is. It's going to look weird, and then this one's going to go under once I load it again. Okay? And it'll be a pattern. So now when I'm reading my pattern, it goes 1 pink, and then I'm going to need 3 purple. I'm using purple because I have a lot of purple, and so it stands out. Let me do my needle real quick. So I have 1 pink, 3 purple, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more pink. 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's my next row. I'm going to go under all of the strings. I'm going to roll my needle up with my beads on it. I'm going to push the strings down. I'm going to make sure that my string is not caught on other stuff. When I pull this needle through, after it's through, I'm going to grab it by the eye. I'm going to pinch it on the eye and I'm going to pull that string through. This is what the end's going to look like. And then the other end should look, I'm going to go through. The other thing you can do right now is you can take a stop and you can just make sure that needle is on top of all those threads. You're going to pull through, and this is going to be a straight end, wherever that goes. So there's 2 ends, the same. And so I'm building this pattern in rows, and so I can just take a mark. I'm done with this row, I'm done with this row, that means I'm on this row. Does this make sense? Yes? No? Yours are like not interesting at all. And you just keep going. And so once you have things, the biggest problems people have with this is they either have beads, like they forget what side they're on and they forget to lock the beads into place. Every time you go through beads, you have to put them on and then you have to come back through the same beads. You don't get to start your new row. You always start the rows from the same side. So you never get to start a new row until you've locked your first row in. So you stitch and then you lock. Let me make sure that's what I have. 3, 3, 4. All right. Push the strings down, pull my needle through. If I'm about to be out of thread, this is another problem people have. If I'm like, oh, my string is almost gone. Here, I'll make my string almost gone. Oh no, my string's almost gone. Stop before it gets shorter than 3 inches. Open it. I get a shoulder length thread. And this is a different way of tying a knot. You put both strings together like they're an 11. You wrap them around your finger, and you take the ends of the 11 and you put them in the hole. And that's a very strong knot. You don't need to worry about trimming that knot right now. And then you thread your needle and keep going. All right? When you get to the other end and you finish your bead weaving, you're going to do the same thing you did at this end, where you go over, under, one way, over, under, way, do way back. Okay? That's bead weaving. Let me show you a finished bead weaving. This one's actually glow in the dark. And so they're actually, like, if you like textures, oh, they're just a delight. If you get yours done and you're like, oh, I'm ready to take it off, when you're ready to take things off of these boards and you're all finished and you're sure it's completely correct, and you can kind of check these, so you can kind of lift this up a little bit and push these beads, and if they fall out one way or the other, you probably need to go fix it. You don't have to undo things to fix it. If I'm like, oh no, I've screwed that up, is what I can do is I can just restitch those beads on. So what I do is I just go in and I go, oh, that's where my mistake is. I needed to go under those beads again. And you can just go back through the bead holes and lock them onto place again. But if this is done, is what you'll do is you will cut the strings in the back in the middle. You will leave everything on your stitchery. You'll take 2 strings off and you'll tie these 2 strings together and then hook them back on. Let me see if I don't have a good example for that. Because if you undo all your strings and take the whole thing off to tie it all at once, stuff's gonna start falling off the ends. Okay? And if you're really like scared of doing the tying off part or something, you can bring it back in and I'll help you. This is one of your options to like get stuff to take today or next class or whatever. You do want to have a plan. You really can't go, I mean, this is 10 wide, 17 wide is probably the longest, like 17 by 13 is going to be your longest, more like 30 is going to be your longest amount. And I do have graph paper for people to take and do their designs on. The other thing people in the other class wanted to know more about was embroidery. I don't know how much you guys are in that. But I'll show you that too. And if any of this is like super confusing, then let me know. Embroidery there's a hoop, it has 2 parts. There's the wood part, there's the fabric, and then there's the wood part with the adjustment. This should be loose. So you put your wood full circle down. If you have plastic ones at home, that's fine. You slide that over the top, you screw this down. If I had a design, which actually I think I do, my daughter made some artwork right here. Thanks, Gila. Yeah. It's drawing with thread. Oh, she has a collar like that. All right. So I have a picture on here. It's kind of hard for you guys to see. It looks kind of like that picture, the head. And it's what you're going to do is you're going to get a piece of string, like embroidery floss. Now there's 2 kinds of embroidery floss. The stuff that people have been borrowing from me have been these ones that are the smaller ones. They're only 1 thread wide. You can do embroidery floss that is more layers thick, and that's fine. I do the same thing with embroidery floss that I do with the other things. I always do 1 arm length. The trick for me, once I find my scissors again, is that I like to thread the needle. And to thread a needle for me, when these small ones, I don't know if you can see my fingers, I make a little loop and then I push the loop through the end of the needle. But for these, so that I don't lose the needle, I bend the string in half and I find the 2 ends, and I do that like a little 11, the 11 knot. I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it the 11 knot because that's how I think of it. Where I make the 2 ends look like a number 11. I wrap the 11 around my finger and I stick the ends of the 11 through the hole. This means that my needle stays on my string. And I just realized I put my design on the paper fabric backwards. This is a problem that is easily solvable. I will turn my design over and try this again. The first stitch that I'm going to make, I'm going to come through the back. I'm going to push. I don't know if you guys can see on that, but what I'm doing is I'm pushing until there's a little bump on my needle, and I come up. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pull that knot through. I'm going to leave a little bit of string on the back, and I'm going to make a small stitch. Stitches should be shorter than 1/4 inch. Now there are a ton of different kinds of embroidery stitches that you can look up online on YouTube. I'm learning more myself every day. It's something that I want to learn. Well, not every day. I wish I was learning new embroidery stitches every day. But is what I like to do is I like to go forward a little bit. This is called a back stitch. And then go back in and touch it where it came out the last time. And so what this does is it gives me a solid line. Things you can do with embroideries: you can make them into small pillows. You can make them part of masks. You guys could embroider on your masks. Some of you are choosing those things. Common mistakes that I find with students is they get strings in a knot, or they end up with a big loop in the back or a big knot, and it is not the end of the world. If you just try not to pull hard on a knot, you're going to be more likely to be successful in getting the knot out. If you start tugging on the knot hard, you might as well just cut your string and start over. So when you get done with whatever it is you're stitching, and you're like, I'm gonna be done, I will show you how to tie this off. So you can do, if I was taking more time, it would be a little bit. So there's a little loop. Ah, what happened? So what happened was my strings got uneven, so I just take my string between my fingers and I run my string back down to my needle and I make sure it's not tangled. There we go. We're all the same again. So when you get done with the string, you're like, ah, that's good. Her face is not gonna be black from there on. You take this needle and you go underneath your strings in the back. And then before this loop gets closed, you go inside that loop. And you do that a few times. And that will lock your string on. Okay? All right. Questions, concerns, anticipated issues, frustrations, things you've already tried, things you know you want.